For too long, politicians have underestimated how central the Second Amendment is to American voters. They assured us that a few campaign slogans would be enough to satisfy gun owners. But a new Reuters Ipsos poll from September 23rd proves otherwise. Republicans now lead Democrats by 4 points on gun policy and by a decisive 20 points on crime. These numbers show that defending the right to keep and bear arms is not only good policy, but it's good politics. They also confirm a larger trend. America supports President Trump's pro-gun agenda. And today, we're going to look at why supporting the Second Amendment is helping politicians get elected and stay in office. I'm Phil, filling in for Tiffany, who unfortunately left Gun Owners of America to work at NASA. We wish her all the best on the next step of her career. In the meantime, I, along with a few others, will be filling in for the show until we find a more permanent host. So, like I mentioned earlier, I'm Phil and you're watching One in the Chamber, the show that helps you become a better gun rights activist. In 2022, Gun Owners of America warned Republican senators and representatives about the dangers and pitfalls of the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. The language in the BSCA led former President Biden to issue a directive to the ATF to bring the United States as close to universal background checks as possible without additional legislation, and bribed states with federal grants to enact red flag laws. You'd think that faced with such a bad proposition, pro-gun senators and representatives would hold the line and defend the Second Amendment. But actually the opposite happened. Fearing electoral consequences, weak Republicans bent the knee to their Democrat colleagues, crossed the aisle, and voted for the worst infringement on the Second Amendment in decades, hoping that their compromise would be rewarded. The political consequences were swift. After the bill became law, at least 16 of the 29 Republicans who voted in favor of the bill either lost their re-election to more pro-gun challengers or chose not to run again. Grassroots voters sent a clear message. They will not accept half measures or betrayals. Politicians who say that they support the Second Amendment but vote against it found themselves out of office. Meanwhile, the face of gun ownership has changed. The modern gun owner is not satisfied with words on a campaign flyer. They expect results, and they act at the ballot box when politicians fail. They also know that the Second Amendment is not about hunting. It's about preserving liberty. Many now train and equip themselves seriously, taking on the responsibility of being their own first responders. That level of commitment demands an equally serious response from elected officials. With this lead over Democrats in the polls, Republicans are reaping the benefits of their pro-gun actions. Earlier this year, Republicans eliminated the $200 tax on items like short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns, suppressors, and other firearms that are regulated by the National Firearms Act. And while the ideal victory would have been the removal of these items entirely from the NFA, it was at least a step in the right direction. For over 90 years, the NFA was the centerpiece of the gun control lobby's agenda. Chipping away at that is a sign that Republicans are beginning to legislate in line with the priorities of the people who put them in office. And Trump himself set the tone. His executive order on protecting Second Amendment rights directed federal agencies to review and eliminate regulations that infringed on the right to keep and bear arms. That move, like the recent rollback of NFA taxes, demonstrated that a proactive, unapologetic defense of gun rights can strengthen both policy and political standing. The latest polling is simply more proof that Americans reward leaders who follow through on their promises to protect the Second Amendment. The effect has even been felt in Washington, D.C., long considered the heart of gun control. Under U.S. Attorney Pirro and Trump's DOJ, prosecutors stopped charging people for lawfully carrying rifles, shotguns, and so-called high-capacity magazines because those laws are just unconstitutional. At the same time, D.C. has been forced to speed up concealed carry permitting. These changes in one of the most hostile jurisdictions in the country are a direct reflection of a pro-gun agenda being put into practice. Voters increasingly trust Republicans to keep their communities safe, not because they embrace gun control, but because they recognize that empowering citizens is more effective than restricting them. Crime is now an issue where Republicans hold a 20-point advantage, and that edge reflects the credibility earned by defending gun rights rather than compromising them away. The lesson for Republicans could not be clearer. Gun owners are no longer satisfied with rhetoric alone. Gun owners are a decisive voting bloc that expects meaningful action. Compromising by voting for bills like the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act cost Republicans dearly, while unapologetically pro-gun measures are rewarded at the polls. The anti-gun movement is showing cracks, and every pro-Second Amendment reform widens them. If Republicans want to win the trust of Americans on both safety and liberty, they must continue to embrace President Trump's pro-gun agenda. Gun owners will have their backs, so long as they have ours. I'm Phil with One in the Chamber. Thanks for watching.